What do you think a Poilievre administration would look like alongside a Trump administration?
I worry that there will be a lot more of the playing on theatrics.
Today is the day, or maybe it's not the day, that Justin Trudeau resigns. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today's top story here. Justin Trudeau, is he going to resign? Is he not? We're waiting for this announcement here. But regardless of this announcement, Canada will endure even more hardship before things get better. There's a lot of play it here, but what we're hearing is Justin Trudeau is going to step down, be the interim prime minister while a leadership race goes on. He's going to prorogue and someone else is going to step in. Let's jump into this. Let's start this one off with some polling numbers here. So as you can see, it's just big blue wave across Canada. The Bloc is the only other party that's really getting any seats. And with that, you can see it here. So 236 for the Conservatives, 45 for the Bloc, 35 projected for the Liberals, 25 for NDP, and 2 for the Green. So this is another problem we need to talk about here. So if the Bloc becomes the official opposition, what does that mean for the House of Commons, for a question period, for the government? Is this party that only represents one province, which should be illegal? It's ridiculous. Are they going to be asking questions that only address Quebec? They're not going to care about anything that happens anywhere else? They won't even address it? Are they just going to be letting the NDP and the Conservatives go back and forth? Like, this is very bizarre. Another thing to think about, are they going to want to try to separate from Canada again? It seems Justin Trudeau's going away president to Canada is more madness. This guy is a wrecking ball. He goes through people's lives. He goes through countries. He just destroys everything. So with that, we've got this one from the HOC staffer account. Apparently, this account has connections in the government and they slip out information. It says Conservatives have postponed a series of announcements for tomorrow because of talk of something big on the Liberal side is happening. Liberal staff have been told to show up in person. Does Justin Trudeau resign tomorrow? So I heard one of the broadcasts today that is true. The part about all the staff are supposed to show up tomorrow. Why would this be? Because Trudeau's making an announcement. So he's either going to do one of a few things. One, he's either going to prorogue. Two, he calls an election, which I don't think is going to happen because he's too arrogant. Unless he's feeling really vindictive and he wants revenge against the Liberals for turning against him. It is still a possibility. I think it's a lower possibility. Or three, he doesn't step down. He just keeps pushing forward. He resumes his course until he is forced out with a confidence motion. So we're talking like 40% chance of either of those, 10% chance that he calls an election. That's my prediction, at least. Let's take a look here, what other people had to say. I think he resigns. Everything Trudeau does is driven by ego. The worst thing for his ego at this point is resignation. Yeah, he is. That's what I'm thinking. He's not going to just resign, but who knows? Maybe he's had enough is enough. Maybe his kids kind of said, hey, Dad, it's time to hang it up. Spend some time with us, whatever. Who knows? I think a snap election is more likely than resignation because as much as deluded enough to think he can win, he also screws detractors out of pensions if he doesn't. No, he's going to prorogue. So everyone's split in this comment section here. So one thing to think about, if he prorogues and he helps the Liberals out with this, then maybe there's some other plan afterwards for whatever job career he wants to do afterwards that involves going out, not completely burning the ships. I mean, this guy's got so much money, he doesn't need another job, but he's power hungry, so he will do that. We got a clip from Conservative Michelle Rempel-Gardner. She's breaking down all the facts, non-facts, nothing's confirmed, but what they think is most likely going to happen here.
And that's that it sounds like Justin Trudeau, he's not like he's just going to quit and trigger an election. He's going to announce his resignation. They're also reporting that he's likely going to prorogue or suspend Parliament and that he wants to stay on as, quote, interim leader while the Liberal Party has a prolonged leadership race. What does that mean in non-fancy political terms? It means that Justin Trudeau is going to announce that he's going to quit, but he wants to stay on as interim leader while he suspends Parliament to allow Liberal insiders to pick people who are all complicit in his decisions. Like, a point somebody that somebody just made to me before I came live to you was that every person who's going to run for the Liberal leadership, they're Justin Trudeau Liberals. It's like the analogy we used was like, it's like the clone wars, right? It's literally like the clone army. It's like pick a different clone. You're all the same. You're all Justin Trudeau acolytes.
This is a possibility. This would allow Justin Trudeau to have all his ahs on the world stage here hosting the G7. He's still being the interim prime minister leader while the Liberal leadership race goes on. He gets all those selfies and photo ops and all that narcissistic stuff. I can see this as a possibility too.
He's likely going to try and stay on, prorogue Parliament and prevent an election to allow the Liberals to go through a prolonged leadership race so that they can fundraise.
This is so selfish and greedy against the Canadian people. Like, Canadians have had enough. We won an election. This has been going on way too long. There needs to be laws against this.
So as much as I am excited to hear that Justin Trudeau is announcing his exit, this does not necessarily mean the end of the Justin Trudeau rule of the country. And in fact, it sounds like things might get a lot worse before they get better. What does this mean practically if he prorogues or suspends Parliament? We found a way to force a non-confidence vote basically as soon as the House comes back. It's scheduled to come back at the end of January. If Justin Trudeau prorogues Parliament, it means that he would shut down parliamentary committees, and we wouldn't have the opportunity to do that. Think about the implications for our country. There's not going to be a parliament to scrutinize how Justin Trudeau is negotiating with incoming American President Donald Trump. There's not going to be a parliament to deal with, the liberal scandalous spending that's happened. There's not going to be a parliament to address the increase in the carbon tax that's about to happen. There's not going to be a parliament to address government spending. There's not going to be a parliament to address crime. There's not going to be a parliament to address Canada's broken immigration system. And what the Liberals are going to be asking all of you, and you're going to hear this in the CBC, you're going to hear it in mainstream media spin over and over and over again, is that you, as a Canadian, absolutely, it's the best thing to allow the Liberal Party to suspend Parliament and to allow a Liberal leadership race to take place instead of going to a general election. And
It's an absolute waste of Canadians' time is what it is. Typically, prorogation only lasts 1 or 2 months. I can see them extending this as long as they need. Now, there needs to be a budget to keep the government going. Technically, prorogation calls for Parliament to be in session only 1 day of the year. So I'm guessing with enough lawyers and loopholes, who knows how long they can drag this out for.
The Liberal Party is going to try to convince Canadians that it is okay to shut down Canada's democratic processes for months at a time of national crisis in order for them to get their shit together in their party. That is not what any of us deserve in this country. I don't care how you vote. We need a general election.
Yeah, we do need a general election. As I said, this is going to get worse before it gets better. And she said it too. We got this posted by Fred Delory, a former member of the Conservatives, a campaign strategist now. It says, bold, crazy prediction. Trudeau isn't resigning. He's calling an election soon. His message to Caucus, run under my leadership or leave. I've watched and studied him as an opponent for years. Trudeau is many things, but he's no quitter. Hard to say who he's influenced by. Was it Mark Miller, Katie Telford, Dominic LeBlanc? Is it his kids? What's he going to do? Is he step down? Is he going to go out fighting? He thinks he's a fighter. He just put out that Terry Fox thing. That lines up with that. There's a possibility. I think it's a lesser possibility, but who knows? We got this posted by Brian Lilly here. Says, this is the current public itinerary of the PM for Monday. Do you think it changes? National Capital Region, Canada. The Prime Minister will participate virtually in a meeting of Cabinet Committee on the Canada-US relations. We all know Trudeau doesn't do anything most days. He just walks around and takes photos with people. Will he prorogue the government until the G7 so he can do his ahs on the world stage? There's a lot of options here. I think this is a cover for what will actually be happening. We got this report here. It says Trudeau's silence deafening and growing calls for resignation. I mean, we saw just like 4 of them the other day there. At this rate, Trudeau can't go another week without having another dozen Liberals calling for him to resign.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continues to face growing calls to step down. Since his return to Ottawa on Friday, Trudeau remains tight-lipped about his future plans. A special meeting of the Liberal Caucus is scheduled for Wednesday as the party prepares for non-confidence motions promised by the 3 opposition parties. Public policy expert Stevie O'Brien joins us now to discuss this further. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This is the worst we've ever seen it for Trudeau. Do you think it's time for him to step down, and do you think he will?
I don't see a path forward to victory with Prime Minister Trudeau leading the party. So I think for that very reason, it's time for a change. Whether or not he agrees with that, I think, is the big question. And the silence since mid-December has been deafening. It's really going to be telling what comes out of the National Caucus meeting on Wednesday, which is like a 6-hour meeting. And I think it's going to depend a lot on who comes in person, what arguments are made, and whether or not the Prime Minister even participates.
Yeah, whether they come in person or not, because I know there are some that can enter virtually. So what are the next steps here for Justin Trudeau?
So he's going to have to have some response to caucus within, I'd say, the next week, whether he's staying, whether he's going, and hopefully, if he is going, the mechanism for choosing the next leader. Canadian politicians don't tend to have interim prime ministers, so there's a strong likelihood that even if a leadership race is to take place, that he will stay on as prime minister during that, like Mulroney did in the lead up to Kim Campbell becoming.
It is possible in Canada, and it might actually be to the Liberals' benefit if they did put an interim prime minister that isn't Trudeau, which is hilarious, but I don't think he would agree to that. There's no way he would do that. He would still love to fly around the world and do his ahs all over the place, even knowing he's going out. But
prime minister, that's going to create its own interesting dynamic with having a sort of lame duck prime minister negotiating with Trump over the tariff issue. So perhaps for that reason alone, they won't go that route. I think the other thing that's going to have to necessarily come out of this is a prorogation of Parliament.
Now, we talked about that Liberal caucus meeting coming up. What do you think will be discussed there?
I think you're going to see a repetition of what's already been reported in the news. The various regional caucus groups will come forward and repeat what they've already said sort of publicly. I think we've seen the Ontario, Quebec caucus come out. We'll probably see, well, we won't see, but in national caucus, you'll see BC caucus, other regional caucuses.
There's a BC caucus, really?
Will also speak up. Again, I think it really is going to depend on who comes into the room. As we've all been over the last few years on many Zoom meetings, your voice is much more impactful if you are there. And if most people attend virtually, I think there's a stronger chance that the Prime Minister survives another day.
I want to elaborate a bit more on something you mentioned, the new administration coming into the White House. For Canadians, is this a bad time for an early election and a shift in our leadership?
This isn't a great time to, I think, show weakness and to show vulnerability to the incoming American president. That being said, I don't think we in Canada should be living in fear or of a trade war or the tariff threat, at least to such a degree that we bend our processes, we bend our principles, or we change our systems.
There's no way to really predict what's going on here because we're hosting the G7. We're not going to have a stable prime minister with Justin Trudeau, or an interim one wouldn't be stable either. You throw in Mark Carney or Chrystia Freeland or any of these other clowns, they're going to be fumbling around trying to play prime minister. We've got this tariff threat from Donald Trump. We've got the potential of the Bloc being the official opposition who wouldn't give a crap about anything else in Canada except Quebec. And we have all these problems that we actually have to deal with. The crime, the inflation, housing prices, immigration, our economy, our GDP, our dollar has dropped off a cliff. We have so many problems, and we have the biggest loser running our country.
So not ideal, but whoever, goes into 2025, whether at the end of the election, whether it's Prime Minister Trudeau, whether it's a Poilievre administration or a new Liberal government, at least they'll have a very clear mandate from Canadians on and when they go forward and deal with Canada-US relations.
What do you think a Poilievre administration would look like alongside a Trump administration?
I worry that there will be a lot more of the playing on theatrics. There will be, I don't know, Poilievre it's a safe place to act when you are in opposition, to be talking about what you would do or, criticizing.
I'm sorry, playing into theatrics. I gave her a second to speak there, but it's like Justin Trudeau's the one who plays on theatrics. He's the thespian. He's quite literally the drama teacher. He's the thespian actor we have as a prime minister. Poilievre's going to come in, cool as a cucumber, and get the job done. He's going to build a strong bond with Trump. He's going to make good deals that they both win, and Canada will get better. That is my prediction.
In the government, I'm not sure that President Trump is going to find Poilievre in any way an equal or somebody he wants to deal with either. It's going to be a lot more challenging, I think, when you're in the chair and steering the bus than it is to just sort of critique from the outsides.
Well, speaking of new leadership, there are reports Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney are reaching out to MPs in a bid to launch their leadership race. Could they be the next leaders of the Liberal Party? Or if not, who are some possible candidates?
So those are two names that are definitely probably top of the list. I'd add Dominic LeBlanc as well as somebody who especially if we're talking in the CanUS context, would be a very strong leader in dealing with.
A strong leader? Are you kidding me? Dominic LeBlanc, just like Justin Trudeau, have been found in violation of breaking ethics laws, both of them. That's the guy we want to step in? Guy with a dirty record?
With the intergovernmental CanUS relations piece. One of the challenges I think someone like Carney faces is, while it's one thing to be popular or to have the support of Canadians across the country, and when you're winning a leadership, you really need the support of caucus and the support of party membership. And I'm not sure that he has that in the way that Minister Freeland or former Minister Freeland or Minister LeBlanc have.
Yeah, that's interesting. Former Minister Freeland. She's not a minister anymore. Political analyst. She's a Liberal Party operative. Yeah, this is not a good take on here. Liberal Party's toast either way. They should stop dragging this out and just call an election. Stop putting Canadians through all this suffering. She worries a lot about theatrics with the Poilievre government. What a freaking joke after 9 years of Trudeau's theatrics. We've got some more here on CTV.
Well, it's looking more, and I can't say official, but it's looking more and more like Mark Carney is indeed interested in the job.
Right. And as you mentioned, we've been talking about this, speculating about this for a long time. And again, even back to when Bill Morneau left cabinet, there was speculation then that Justin Trudeau was talking to Carney about potentially coming in and that creating awkwardness for Morneau and everything else. And so now we seem to be at a point that it's not just speculation, that Carney is making calls. He is trying to figure out what kind of support he would have in caucus. And so it's interesting because at this point, as you say, Trudeau still hasn't quit yet. Like, we're not at a point of certainty, and we certainly don't know how the mechanics, if he does resign, we don't know exactly how the party is going to get from Trudeau as leader to somebody else as a leader who would represent the party in the next election. But we are starting to see a bit more certainty around who is interested in the job, Carney being one of them. And it's interesting to think about the people who are thinking about putting their hat into the ring for something that looks like is going to be a losing project in the next election, right? Like, not to be a jerk about it, but I mean, are you running to be prime minister? Are you running to be a third party leader? Like, what do you think is actually going to happen? Those who are looking at this job.
Something to note about Mark Carney is they could have a leadership race and he could win that and become the leader. He wouldn't be an elected MP, but it wouldn't matter though, because they wouldn't be doing question period. They wouldn't be in the House of Commons. The government would be prorogued, and then throne speech, they would be taken down because no one would support them unless Jagmeet makes some dirty deal with Mark Carney. Then it really spices things up. But then Mark Carney's got to win his seat. There's not a lot of ridings anymore that are to be going Liberal. So does Mark Carney pick the most sure riding and go for that one? That's very much what Jagmeet did. Instead of running for something in Ontario, he ran in Burnaby where he would win. There's a lot of moving parts here. It's interesting to see where it'll all fall.
As far as I know, he's never run for office. This is a world that he would be new to. And again, does he want to come in and be a third place party leader? Like, really? I assume if he does this, it's because he wants to be prime minister. Does he want to build this project up from the ground again if the next election doesn't go well for them?
Well, he had that cheeky smile when he's asked about being prime minister. Like, it was an undeniable, boyish smile. He's already achieved probably all he wants to in the banking and asset management and all that. He's stinking wealthy. The guy wants to be prime minister. It's quite clear. He wants that power. He has that same lust for it. You can see it in his eyes like Justin Trudeau. I think Carney would stick around for 4 years or 8 years just to try to become prime minister.
That's the thing. And he's turning 60 this year. I mean, the Liberals could be a two-term project. I mean, it looks like they won't win the next election. And then who knows what would happen in the one after that. So he could be here for another 6 to 8 years to try and rebuild. That's a big challenge. I
think you're absolutely right. I mean, this isn't something that you're going to be walking into. And even to compare it to Justin Trudeau, he took this thing over when the party was down to 34 seats. That was after, 2 years after Michael Ignatieff had that result in the 2011 election, when that was the worst that things ever had been for the Liberals. Justin Trudeau took the party over in 2013. Massive project. But he was looking at a general election 2 years later when he then, transformed the thing and took it into a 184-seat majority. But at this point, it's like the tail end of that story, where whoever comes in now, the party is, if the polls are right at all, on its way out. And I don't think, with all respect to whoever might take this thing over, I don't think that there's a person who's going to completely transform the circumstances where they're all of a sudden going to come first, right? And so, as you say, this is going to be a 6-year project, an 8-year project, at least a 4-year project. And is that what Carney or any of these people want to sign up for at this point?
And just one last question before we go. The Liberal caucus is meeting. Are we going to hear anything from the Prime Minister? Do you think this week there was talk? We've heard that he was going to announce his resignation this weekend. Do you think we will hear from him before the caucus meeting on Wednesday?
I think that it would be sensible. I don't know why he would let these caucus meetings happen. And then walk into them? Like there's the regional caucuses are going to be meeting Monday and Tuesday. And then the general caucus meeting that's scheduled for Wednesday is 6 hours. So this is not like an information session, right? Like this is not somebody's going to, Brendan Shanahan's going to make an announcement and take a couple of questions and that's it. This is a huge meeting where people are going to be coming to, whether a physical or a virtual microphone, asking questions about what are we going to do if he doesn't leave, right? That pressure, phone asking questions about what are we going to do if he doesn't leave, right? That pressure that the MPs are putting is getting worse and worse by the day. And if it gets to the point of this 6-hour conversation with the entire Liberal caucus, I think that's going to be awful for Trudeau. If he's going to walk away, why not do it before then? So then those conversations turn into something that's more forward-looking about who the next person might be and how they get there, as opposed to trying to figure out ways to make it more difficult for Trudeau to stay.
Okay, Laurie, always appreciate it.
The smartest thing for Trudeau would be to resign, completely just disappear, move over to somewhere in the middle of Africa, and we never see the guy again. He won't be heckled. People won't recognize him over there. That would be the best thing for him, is just disappear, never come back to Canada. What will he do? I don't know. Carney is totally unrelatable to the average Canadian. The same problem Justin has. Yeah, the rich banker. He also put millions in other countries' oil, but doesn't support Canada's oil, just another crook. Yeah, so that's talking about Mark Carney buying up pipelines in UAE and Brazil, and then not supporting Canadian pipelines. He's a traitor to Canada, Mark Carney. Carbon tax Carney will be the next Ignatieff. Damage has been done. This is like trying to save the Titanic with duct tape. This is a great comment. That's right on point. The countdown continues. Will Justin Trudeau resign? Will he prorogue? What will he do? Possible he does nothing today. Maybe he waits until Wednesday when more pressure is applied at the Liberal caucus.